Israel resident opens up about the realities of living in the middle of this conflict.
We're all now getting a picture of the worst nightmare anybody could ever have about what happened.
Now, there's a lot of different opinions floating around there, a lot of people tweeting or putting stuff on social media from the comfort of their own homes, but I've been fortunate enough to go to Israel and make some good friends in Israel. And so I sat down with my friend Nicole to get her perspective of what is life like on the ground right now. In her update today, she revealed some more crazy details about some of the stuff that people have discovered on the ground after the attack. So I had the privilege of speaking to Nicole and her husband, Tony, as they shared their raw thoughts about what has been happening in Israel. There's a lot of details about what it's like to be a resident in the middle of an invasion like this that a lot of us Americans will be completely shocked by. I think the world is watching this stuff. It's very confusing. People have a lot of questions. If you could give us just kind of a backdrop for what's been happening in Israel. When we landed last year, it was 11 months ago, you guys just had your election. And I remember there being a tension because people were like, yeah, we don't know if this is necessarily a good thing or not. This is a more conservative government, right? So can you give us a bit of context of kind of what may have led up to this?
For a couple weeks now, and something that really would not have been reported in the international media, or would have been a small story or a headline you would have seen. There were constant, within the last 2 weeks, daily protests at the border in Gaza, like the Gazans, Palestinians that live in the Gaza Strip, which is the southern portion of Israel, were actually going to the border, which is a fence for the most part. So at some points it's a wall, but it's a fence. And we're protesting. And there were clashes between the protesters and the IDF, but you wouldn't have heard about it. There were maybe a few casualties, so it didn't make the news. And it's very isolated and it was contained. So now, in retrospect, you have to look back and think, were they planning this? And were they maybe planting weapons or devices or monitoring the Israeli military in response? Now, beyond that, so let's go back. It was October 7th. We woke up between 6 and 6:30 a.m. to rocket alerts. And I live in Jerusalem, which is about 2 hours north of what is happening. So I saw, the messages. I was getting news alerts on my phone, and I said, oh, wow, it's happening again. But we've gotten a little used to these flare-ups. There's a lot of rockets. Luckily, there's an anti-missile defense system, shoots them down. Usually nobody's hurt. And the residents of the South get upset. And the government says, oh, no, we'll take care of you. And then it's all over. And, so this is usually what happens. So I actually went back to sleep. 2 hours later, we woke up to a siren in Jerusalem. And we went flying, out of our apartment into the bomb shelter. And that's how it began. So now, you think, okay, so the one that they usually shoot at Jerusalem has been done, and that's it for the rest of the day. But then at that point where we've got the news on, and then we see this is not just rockets. I mean, there were rockets and thousands. The estimate is between 2,000 to 5,000 rockets were fired on that first day. But beyond that, we started getting reports that they infiltrated. Now, the media wasn't down south, and clearly the military wasn't either. Or they were there, but we come to find out later they were overrun. They were their positions were overtaken. But we only find out then through whatever which is the ruling power in Gaza, and it's a organization that is actually also political, and they planned this attack, and they were the ones. Any information that we all got at first on video was coming from them. Wow. Running through their social media channels, then picked up by people who were following them, sending it to the Israeli media channels, and then everywhere. And of course, it's a very small world with this, with social media and information. So we were getting that not even from media. Israeli mainstream media wasn't even, of course, why would they be there? And even they couldn't get close. So the news is still coming out, but what has become clear up till now is that they took got through the border with a bulldozer. I'll
Hmm.
explain more about the border later, about it's a fence, and
Hmm.
about why this is so shocking that they could get through this fence. Got through that, and then took over or a couple of military installations on the border.
Hmm.
Seemed to have killed every soldier that was there, stole equipment, and then dispersed through to several communities, to about 24 communities, Israeli communities around the border.
Hmm.
This is, again, this is 6 in the morning on not just any day of the week, but also Saturday, which is Shabbat, a day of
Hmm.
rest. And it was
Hmm.
also the last day of a holiday.
Hmm.
So people were sleeping. They were in these communities by 6:37 in the morning, and that is when we started getting reports, because everybody's got their phone. That now the Israelis are loading up their stuff on social
Hmm.
media, and people are starting to realize they're calling their friends, they're calling family, and they were under attack.
Mm.
There's one we just found out now, only now today, 2 full days later, that in one community alone there were 100 people killed
My gosh.
just there. Yeah, the death toll now stands officially at 900.
Yeah.
900 Israelis,
Yeah.
in most of them just in that one day. This is the absolute worst military experience that Israel has had
Hmm.
as a state, in 75 years. I mean, well, it's being compared to the Yom Kippur War, but I think this might exceed it in other ways, and we're not done. So anyway, up until just now, they just updated the death count to 900. Some of them are soldiers. I don't know the breakdown of soldiers to civilians, but
Hmm.
here is probably where it takes it from just any military campaign to one of the worst ever, is that in this amount of time in the morning, on Saturday morning, they managed to kidnap 130
Oh my
people
gosh.
from the Israeli side and bring them back into Gaza.
Mm.
And right now, we have no idea. Like, for all we know, they could have been smuggled out of Gaza, or
Mm.
they could be getting killed by the Israeli bombing right now,
My gosh.
of the Gaza Strip.
Wow. Well, I'm glad you guys are safe. That's a lot. That's a lot to take in. That's a lot to process. When we were there, we went to the Gaza border and we saw different communities and talked to people and kind of got an understanding of life there, and that there's a real threat. And they showed us rockets that were flown over from Gaza into southern Israel. So that was really, really sobering. And I was like, man, this feels like we're a little too close to the action. But this is these people's reality. Like this is normal for them, is to be there. I'm hearing reports that they are looking at arming more of the citizens.
Israel's national security minister, who just tweeted this: "Today, I directed the licensing division to go on an emergency operation in order to allow as many citizens as possible to arm themselves."
As a person in California, we have very, 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 very strict gun laws, but we still have a Second Amendment. How does that work in Israel? When I was in Israel, all the ex-military I was with were all armed. And so would that have made a difference on these border cities if the citizens were more armed? Now it seems like Israel's looking at getting people more armed. I know the laws are strict, but there's also a lot of ex-military, because everyone serves for the most part. What do you make of that in terms of just the self-defense aspect of this, or is it not even comparable when you have entering civilian areas?
It definitely would make a difference. I had always felt like when I moved here, I felt like Israelis were more armed than Americans.
Hmm.
However, the numbers don't prove that out. They're actually less armed, but if you're a soldier on duty, you will have
Hmm.
your weapon with you. I mean, if you're off duty, but current active soldier, you will have your weapon with you.
Hmm.
But there's probably just not, there probably weren't enough armed people
Hmm.
in these communities, and also they were sleeping. when this happened. You know, many of them were sleeping. So yeah, it's just there's definitely not enough army now. I know that the current internal defense minister, not the defense minister, he had talked about arming. He wants to arm more Israelis to counter that was occurring in the streets, but this was several months ago, and so I don't think that that yet has happened. So that was already
Okay.
talked about, but for other reasons, not even for this.
As someone, like, you have a good pulse on what's going on there. Where does it go from here? Ben Shapiro tweeted pretty much, he said, if you say it's time for a ceasefire, you are part of the problem. Kind of alluding to like eradicating entirely. Is this something that is going to end in a few days and in a few weeks and Israel just wants to like stop? Or did Hamas cross the line where they're like, we're going to eradicate Hamas at this point? Is it like a full-blown takeover of Gaza? Or is it like we just don't want war?
There's no ceasefire in the cards after this. I mean, the carnage. I didn't even start describing to you the stories that we have heard. The absolute, like, the fields that, you know, have occurred in this offensive. This is beyond comprehension. We are still comprehending it. We are watching all day long people being interviewed in the local media about the getting rescued after 24 hours in a shelter and then walking through the streets running with blood, bodies all over, of their neighbors, their family members, their children. There's no ceasefire after this. I mean, if Israel agreed to a ceasefire, first of all, isn't looking like they're still shooting rockets. I should actually tell you that despite I'm sitting here and it's all quiet and peaceful, that today there was a nonstop barrage of rockets, all mostly in the south, concentrated in the south, but also in Jerusalem and Tel Aviv, and as well there were still active shooting incidents. There were still they're still finding, like, somebody who came in 2 days ago now is cropping up here in another town and having a shootout. And they even warned people who are, when they're running to their bomb shelter, be on the alert for an ambush because they don't have the situation under control. So even if decided to declare a ceasefire, would the operatives on the ground that are presently on the ground in Israel get the message and agree to it? I mean, they know this is a mission, so why would they actually stop anyway?
Gotcha.
So and Israel will look extremely weak. So what's their end goal? Is it a complete takeover of the Gaza Strip? I don't know. We'll find out in the coming days. But we are on the cusp of a ground invasion being launched. They mobilized 300,000 plus reserves, who are most of them concentrated now in the south, and they're about to launch a ground invasion there. Probably tonight and by the way, right before we started this, we were getting messages that residents, everybody around the country needs to go stock up for 72 hours, be prepared for 72 hours. And they sent a list of what to get, and the stores, like I was just peeking at the TV, the stores are emptying out even as we speak. So I don't know, does that mean it's going to start tonight? I mean, it looks like it's about to start tonight.
So what does that 72-hour stock up look like? Is it primarily just food? And is that because if missiles are to strike, they want people to have, or like if grocery stores are to be destroyed, like what is the goal of that 72-hour stock up? And then what's after that 72 hours that feels comfortable to not stock up?
Right. I'm going to tell you what's on the list. I mean, briefly, 3 liters of water per person for 72 hours, dried and canned food supplies, lighting equipment, flashlights operated by batteries, means of receiving alerts and updates such as battery-operated radio or portable batteries for mobile phones, medication, first aid, personal documents, and cash, and equipment for infants and pets per family's needs.
What's it like on the street then? People are running into stores and sure, there's lines at the grocery store because a lot of the civilians have once served, from what I believe. Are there a lot of civilians walking around with at this point?
Only the ones that have a license, and I'm pretty sure the numbers are less than America. Like the percentage of Israelis who qualify to carry a firearm, I think it's stricter than the U.S. So
Gotcha.
I don't think that as many people are armed as you kind of
Okay.
wish were at this point, but
Mhm.
no, as far as, so interestingly enough, and it's surreal because the streets here are empty. They're
Mm.
quiet. It
Mm.
feels like like a Shabbat, like Saturday,
Mhm.
when everything's shut down, and everything is shut down except for the supermarkets.
I mean, I think my question for you, Nicole, is like, how can people be praying specifically for the people of Israel? And is there anything else we can do? Are there charities we can donate to? Like, what can we do on a practical level?
I don't have any specific charities right now, but I'm going to look that up because you're not the first person who asked me that today.
Mhm.
And so I should know, but honestly, this just happened so fast that people are actually, I mean, just so you like, I don't know what's happening in Gaza and with the Palestinians, and I'm not here to be, I can only report to you what I know from the geographical place that I'm in, and I'm in
Mhm.
Israel. And I can see what Israelis are doing, and I know that they're out there from the day after, donating blood, collecting donations, setting up soup kitchens, kind of soup kitchens, bringing food to the border, bringing equipment to the army, to
Mhm.
the guys who are in reserves that are going down there now. I have a friend. She texted me yesterday. No, I can't talk to you right now. I'm at the Dead Sea, and I'm like, "What? You're at the Dead Sea?" I'm like, "What is she on?" She was. That's where they're housing some of the refugees. They brought people. Well, the refugees within Israel. There are now
Mm.
refugees within Israel that had to leave
Mm.
southern communities. So they're displaced for now. Probably
Mhm.
people are, I don't know how they rebuild these kibbutzes in the south,
Mhm.
but a lot of people are determined they're going to go back. That those are their houses. So right now, I think my main prayer request, especially as a journalist, is to be able to differentiate and to discern between the truth and between disinformation. And
Mhm.
there's a lot of that. There's so much information coming out right now. I don't want to misspeak. I don't want to misreport,
Sure.
and I want to know what, I want to be able to know the truth. And I think that would do a service for for all of us. We need to know the truth of what's
Amen.
happening. So I think prayers are, there's grief and destruction and trauma that, to a level that Israel has never known, and probably similarly in Gaza
Mhm.
also, among the people that are getting bombed there. So grief and trauma.
Mm.
You can pray for that. I think you need to pray for wisdom. How does this end? Pray for, the Bible says to pray for the peace of Jerusalem, and that's not meaning I'm rooting for a side.
Mhm.
This is the city of God, and pray for the peace there. I think peace here is going to make a difference in the region.
So it's kind of scary. I mean, for me to take out my kids and go to I don't know, to the store to buy something, you never know what you're going to encounter. So it's very, very tense, very, very tense. So yeah, I mean, I don't know. I mean, I'm following the news. It's driving me nuts, really. I mean, it's just, I just can't keep up. It's like there's so much footage out there about what's happening that's just horrible.
Mhm.
I don't even know what's right and what's wrong anymore. It's like just so much. It's really hard. I don't know what to say. I'm speechless really about the whole situation.
If you want to see the full unedited version of this interview, check it out on our Bless God Studios channel, and be sure to subscribe to Nicole's channel for daily updates as well. I'll see you over there. Peace.